All right, Mark, welcome to Living Off Rentals.
How are you? Thanks for
Yeah,
having me, mate.
yeah. I feel like I've said that to you before. Uh, you're the only guest who's been on this show three times.
Holy
So
moly.
I think
Well, I'm
it's an
honored.
honor.
Thanks, mate, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you here. And I didn't just have you on three times because you're a good friend and I love your smooth New Zealand accent, which, those are both true. But I've asked you back on the show so many times because you're always up to something really interesting and awesome. And so for people who are listening to this, if you want a little more background about the previous two episodes, we get, I think, we got more into Mark's background on those than I think we will today. But it was episode number 5, way back in the day, several years ago. And we talked about, your experience managing and rehabbing rentals with your partner at the time, Ben Wallad. And then episode number 22, where we talked about your role managing projects with ClickInvest. So you can check out more though, check out those to hear more of the background on those particular topics. But man, we've come a long way as friends. It's been a decade since we were both young kids just running around flipping houses, and now we got like an orphanage of children between the two of us, and hundreds of properties later, we're still loving the real estate lifestyle. So I wanted to have you on this third episode specifically because Mark and May are now part of the first vacation rental investment blueprint program that I started about a year ago. They joined last fall, and they've had a few really cool properties now that you've purchased, some short-term rentals that are like cabin-style properties. And I want to just dive in deep into those because I think that's a hot topic for a lot of people. So, I guess we could pick up where we last left off in the last episode. At the time, like I said, you were working with ClickInvest. So I can't say enough great things about ClickInvest. Just an awesome organization. I know you kind of feel the same, but if you can kind of talk about, your transition from ClickInvest to what you're doing now and how that came about, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, cool. So, I'll reiterate kind of what you said. I love the boys over at ClickInvest, Jeff, Rosario, Tommy Schray, for anyone that knows those names over there as well. Just great guys. Really, I did a lot of, my wife and I, the last, definitely last couple of years, have really started to focus on, okay, what are we trying to achieve? I've done so much in real estate investing over the last 8 to 10 years, but less so for myself. And at one point, I had my accountant turn around to me and give me the gentle kick in the butt and go, "Hey, dude, like, what are you doing? What's the long-term plan? And are you trying to achieve it?" Because he's a big. We've been so fortunate with him. He's not just been our accountant. He's been wealth strategist. He's been he's a big real estate guy as well. So he's okay. Use your experience for your own benefit here as well. So,
by the way,
my wife and I,
you're talking about Michael, right?
It is, yeah, Michael Leonard. Actually, I think he's been on here, hasn't he? So
his episode just was released this morning. So
come on, that's awesome.
So if you want to hear more about Mark's accountant, you can check out that episode. I think it's like 110 or something like that. So
he's been very influential for us. So anyone that is lucky enough to have a conversation with him, I would definitely suggest reaching out. But yeah, that really. May and I really kind of shifted focus into, okay, what are we trying to achieve? Our kids are, and no doubt we'll get to this point, but we've got 4 kids under 8. And so as every year that obviously they get older, we're going, okay, what are we going to do over the next 10 years to really get to the point where we want to live off rentals? So I've spent a lot of my experience in the long-term rental market. I do not like the idea of growing a portfolio anymore in the state of Illinois where we live. I was watching a lot of what you were doing, what you and Taryn were doing with Airbnbs, cash flow opportunities. At the end of the day, cash flow is what our goal is about. And we jumped on board with the first vacation rental investment blueprint, really to understand what you guys have been doing and what's involved in that. And we really already had a market set in place, and that was up in mid-Wisconsin. So we'll touch on that in a bit. But to answer your question around kind of the transition out of ClickInvest, as we focused on what we needed to do, I had a really, really good opportunity come up in the corporate world. As much as it pained me to jump away from ClickInvest, it was an incredibly hard decision. But the way I really looked at it was a very good tool in my toolbox for expanding on a real estate investment portfolio. And so I'm going, okay, as much as it grinds my gears to some degree on getting into corporate and the pain of that sometimes, it's for the greater good, right? It's for our bigger, it's for scaling our portfolio. And honestly, it helped me get into my second one. And so, I mean, I'll never look back on that decision, as hard as it was to leave the boys over at ClickInvest. And we'll touch on it, I'd expect as well. But I mean, I'll most probably end up being a client of ClickInvest myself, specifically down and around Florida. So
nice, cool. Yeah, it's funny how real estate investors look at W-2 jobs, because I think most people they look at it as like, well, this is what's going to sustain me, and real estate investors a lot of times it's like, well, it's a means to an end. I'll just fill that role so that I can get access to a lot more financing. And it's it's interesting. It's just a bridge to get to financial freedom eventually. So yeah, not to cut you off here, but I just want to I was thinking about this before the interview, that you guys were at my surprise 40th birthday party last summer. And I remember having a conversation with you at the time. You're like, we just got a call from our realtor today that there's this potential deal up in our target market. And so you still showed up to my birthday party, which I commend you guys for. I appreciate. But you're like, we're going to drive from Valparaiso, Indiana, all the way up to the middle of Wisconsin with our 4 kids after this at night, after we've been at a birthday party all day, to check out this house. So that's pretty hardcore, but it worked out for you guys. You got the house. So can you kind of share a little bit more about the area that you were targeting and your first deal?
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, because it kind of takes me back, and I can touch on some hilarious notes from that day. But so my wife has been going up to Green Lake, Wisconsin, which is right in the center of the state. Funny fact, deepest inland lake in Wisconsin. It's about 7 miles long by about 1.5 miles wide. A lot of Illinois people historically have had houses up there. In fact, I believe Al Capone even had a house up there in the 30s. So we always joke, like, what do you think's at the bottom of the lake?
Yeah.
But so my wife's been going up there her whole life. My in-laws own a cabin on the lake up there. It was something that my wife's grandfather purchased back in the 70s. They built something in the 90s, and have had it there for years. So we know the market really, really well. We know the tourism attraction up there. It's definitely what we thought to be more of a summer focus, boating on the lake, all that sort of stuff. But as we've got into the Airbnb space, we've found just there's such a winter market as well. And people as we've kind of grown, people start going, okay, would you look at Wisconsin Dells? Would you look at Southwest Michigan? And we turn around and go, look, Green Lake is our niche. Everyone, and you talk a lot about it, of identifying your market. We've identified our market, and we know it really, really well, to the point where if something pops up on the market, we can analyze it super quick and we can pull the trigger. Whereas when other people are going, look, I really want to get involved with you guys, but I'd prefer a different market. I'm going, I can't do that yet, because I've spent years looking at the Green Lake market. Mm-hmm. So to the point of your note there around that deal popping up, it was like a Thursday afternoon, popped up on the market. It was like a 1-bed, 2-bath, 900 square foot log cabin in the woods, 3/4 of an acre. It's about a 7-minute drive out of Green Lake. So it's not on the lake, it's off in the woods. And as soon as it popped up, we're going, absolutely ideal. At the time, it was, wow, I would love this for my kids to grow up having a place to go do similar like what my wife has had. And then immediately the conversations start going, okay, well, Airbnb could be an incredibly attractive option for this as well. So that came up Thursday night, called the realtor same day, knew we were coming out to Indiana on the Saturday. It just kind of worked that she's like, we can get you in there Saturday. I said, we can't, but my mother-in-law is coming up. So she met with the realtor, the listing agent. This is, I think at this point, we're at your property. My mother-in-law says, call me, we need to chat. You guys need to put an offer in on this place. Called the listing agent while we're out at your place. She got the offer written up. I'm literally in the car. I'm like, Kirby, give me 10 minutes. I need to go and sit in the car. I'm looking at my phone, trying to look at the Wisconsin real estate contract. So got the offer submitted, said, hey, we're in Indiana right now, but we will be up there tonight if you can set up a showing for May and I to come and see it tomorrow, being Sunday. We shot straight up from Indiana up to Wisconsin, had the kids in the back. I think we stopped at home for about 15 minutes, which is up near here, packed some bags for the kids and shot up to Wisconsin. Then 3 o'clock the next day, we found out we got our offer accepted. So we went in super aggressive. We really did. We went in full list price, 10 grand earnest money. Closing, we set about 45 days, purely just because, A, I didn't have the 130 grand cash in my bank account yet. So I needed to go and figure out, I need to give myself leeway to try and go and talk to people and raise it. So that's another story. But I guess the point of my story here is like, we had absolute confidence in our understanding of the market, of its attractiveness as an Airbnb. We knew the comps, and the other part of this is we know people in the area. So from a turnover perspective, we were confident having an Airbnb 3 hours north of us. So
yeah, that's such a great point you bring up, because that's one of the top Googled Google searches around short-term rentals is, what is the best market for short-term rentals? Like, anyone who has an idea, maybe I should get into short-term rentals, it's like, that's the first thing they search, and it's all over the place. The results, I tell people this all the time, that there's like 1,000 different results you'll get, and it's all based on all these different factors. And probably Green Lake, Wisconsin isn't one of the top factors. I don't think that's like the mecca of short-term rentals, but it's such a great point you bring up. The reason there's so many results that come up is because it can work in so many different markets. And so understanding what your priorities are and understanding the market so well, like you do, you can make vacation rentals. We're going to get in the numbers in a second, but you can make vacation rentals in Green Lake, Wisconsin work phenomenally well. You don't have to be in, Gatlinburg, Tennessee, or Panama Beach, Florida, like everyone thinks you have to be. So I'd love to, talk a little bit about the numbers, which, by the way, we just put up a case study page on the Living Off Rentals website. So if you go to livingoffrentals.com, you can see there's a case study tab at the top. You can click on it and you can see case studies of people who have recently got vacation rentals who are part of this program. And Mark's deal is actually there. So you can look, there's a 1-pager breakdown of the numbers if you want to reference that. But if we could kind of talk through it, what your expectations were initially and how it's worked out so far.
Yeah, it's funny because I wonder if there's even an element to that case study being slightly out of date, because it was setting our expectations right out of the gate. We're like, this thing is going to be on the market in 6 weeks. We're going to get up, we're going to do this and that, and we're going to get it furnished, and it's going to be good. Well, our first booking, we closed on it September 7th, so just after Labor Day last year, 2021. And we didn't get it live and on the market ready for the first guest until January 15th. And so much of it was around, well, two things were, we didn't really factor in how much time was involved, especially given that it's a 3-hour drive from home. I spent 4.5 months doing about 80% of the work myself. We actually converted the basement into 2 full legal bedrooms. We put 2 full egress window wells in there. So the framing out, the wiring, the finishing, the painting, all of that, I didn't factor in. I mean, I've been doing this nearly 10 years, but not been doing it myself as much. And so we didn't factor in the amount of time it would take. I spent the better part of 4.5 months up there by myself. My wife, May, for those that know her, understand how much of a superwoman she is, managing 4 kids, getting them to school. It comes down to a partnership, right? It's like we both got the same goals. So she's doing her intense job over here while I'm up there trying to do that intense job. So there was high expectations around how soon we get it on the market. And then there was availability of reliable contractors in a remote area, and that really kicked us to the curb to some degree. It's just not the same pool of contractors that I'm so very used to. And then the other factor is because there's not that same pool of contractors, prices are ridiculous. I mean, cost of living up there is so much cheaper, yet the construction prices up there are so much more expensive. So,
wow.
And then you try to negotiate and they go, well, no problem. Like, go and find someone else. Oh, dear. So that kind of hurt too, especially on the egress window wells when I know how much it should be or how much I've paid in the past in Chicagoland to get an egress window well installed. It was about 75 to 100% more expensive than that.
Wow.
So that really crushed our budget. But I mean, May crushed it on the design and the furnishing piece, but at the same period too, like finding all of that stuff, shipping it up, not shipping it up there, trucking it up there because we drove it all up there, we furnished it ourselves. It's just time, right? So
yeah, so it's a lot of legwork. Can you share a little bit about what you got it for, what you put into it, and what it's booking for, or what you expected it to book for?
Yeah, so we bought it for $130, like I said earlier, full list price. The real estate agent said she could have sold that thing 10 times over.
Yeah.
We paid $130. At this point, I can't remember what my original deal analyzer said, but I know where we landed was about 20 grand in rehab, and we ended up at about 14 in furnishing costs.
Okay.
We like I said, we turned it from a 1-bed 2-bath into an official 3-bed 2-bath. Got the appraiser in there and refinanced it at about 165. So all in, we're kind of a net zero, including furnishing costs. But I was able to cash out my investor, get it into a 30-year loan. I think we're at 3.25%.
Wow.
That was on a second home mortgage. And I say that because our next property wasn't, and it's purely because it's 15 minutes down the street. So they're like, you're not looking at two vacation homes within 15 minutes of each other. Yeah. So couldn't quite qualify for a second home mortgage on the second one. So the numbers are definitely a lot tighter on that. But
which, by the way, sorry to interrupt, for others who are interested in using this strategy, technically you can qualify for 2 second homes that are conventional mortgages. And so the stipulation, just like you said, is they have to be in different markets. So a lot of people think you can only qualify for 1. You actually can qualify for 2, but they just have to be in different markets. Sorry, go ahead.
No, great point. And that's, we were looking to use it and expand our market a little bit more. In fact, we offered something about 45 minutes further south in Green Lake. The market's even crazier down there. To be real quick, it's a $325,000 house on the lake, Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. We went in there. We calculated about 100 to 125 in the basement. The basement was a mess. This place was huge as well. That had water issues. There's all sorts of. We said we'll still offer full list, knowing where the ARV can be, and we lost out. And we found out it closed at 379. We're going, you guys can have it.
Yeah.
But getting back to the second home mortgage, we were looking to use that on that property because it was in a different market. But we know Green Lake, so we found a second one, and we were watching that for the better part of 3 or 4 months because everything's overpriced. Sellers have definitely got either a high expectation or they are just listing and hoping.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's all context, right? Like somebody in California right now is listening to this, looking to buy a vacation house in, Tahoe or something. And they're going, wait, 130 for a house, like a whole house, not like a brick.
Yeah.
So, it's overpriced for the comps in the area, overpriced compared to what anything has ever sold for in the past, but still pretty affordable market. So what type of nightly rate were you guys thinking you'd get, and how has that worked out? You listed it, you said in January, right?
We did. So listed it January 15th. Well, I underwrote the deal, and I'm looking at my spreadsheet over here as well, but underwrote the deal at about $219 a night, factoring in like a 6-month high, 6-month low season. People that know the market would argue that you could really look at a 7 to 8 month high season, purely because you can extend into the colder months as well. Some people might even class February to be a high season because of snowmobiling. But we did $219 a night in the high, and then $125 in the low. The first 4 weeks, not having any hard data behind me, like of my own data, I just wanted to get the thing renting. And we were doing so with the mindset of like, okay, we'll drop the rate a little bit to get the bookings up in order to try and get 5-star reviews. We had no doubt in our ability to provide a 5-star review. We'd followed all the systems. We get all the check-in, check-out templates. We had the design was great. The turnover system was ready. We just needed people in there. And so we were booking. Initially, I had a couple of bookings actually come in at 175 when I was kind of cocky one night. I'm like, you know what? I'll bump up my January listings to 175 a night, see what hits. It hit here and there. And then I wanted to fill in the gaps. And so I dropped it down to 125 and even 99 during the week. And the thing exploded. And we booked up for the next 6 weeks. So May and I were looking at each other going, obviously, we're leaving money on the table. But right now, for the short term, we're going to look at it as, okay, let's get our 5-star reviews up. And we're eagerly awaiting April 1st, because that's when Airbnb releases their super host review statuses. So we're right there. You can actually track it on Airbnb. So we're right there, primed and ready. So hoping that can be issued for us come April. But to the point of kind of the numbers, we really started to dive into March and April and further into the summer and go, look, like obviously we've been leaving money on the table. So after conversations with yourselves and with other people within the program, it's like, okay, let's put it up to where we think the max is, plus an extra bit on top of there, and just see what hits. And funnily enough, literally within hours, we had someone book in for a weekend at $249 a night. So we're going
in this season, or that's for the summer?
That was April. I think that booking came through.
Jeez.
So long story short here, I don't yet know. And May and I, now we've got 2 of them. We're like, okay, for 2022, the plan right now is to like, let's see where the data lands. Let's see how summer goes. Let's focus on having a really good stay for our guests, like watching the comps 2 to 3 times a week, adjusting as we see fit, get through summer and into the fall, and then assess and see where do we land. And then all of a sudden the comps become our own, right? We know our own data on how it performs. So it's a game. It's a fun game. But
yeah, I always tell people that pricing is an art that you sort of get to learn, and it feels very counterintuitive. Like initially when you list it, you want to list it a lot lower. Most people always err on the low side just to get these bookings, because you're not sure like of the demand and all that. And you leave a lot of money on the table in the beginning. You recognize this much faster than we did. We left a lot of money on the table for like a year or 2 in the beginning, but getting better at it now. But it's a discipline, because as you get closer to the booking date, there's less inventory available. So understanding what the demand is in your market and how much is available, and monitoring, like you said, the comps, because eventually there's nothing else cheaper than yours. So yours is probably going to get booked, but you've got to hold out for a certain amount of time and not hold out too long to where you're too close to the booking date and then not get a booking. So it really is an art. But just to reference your numbers, I mean, you said your low season projections were 125, but you didn't mention that you were projecting a 40% occupancy. So right off the bat, you're getting above your low season projected price. And you said you booked up for the next 6 weeks solid. So your actual numbers are going to blow your projections out of the water because you haven't even got into the high season and you're already booking above high season rates. So that is awesome. You also mentioned, just to back up a little bit, not to get too far off topic, but you mentioned how you were up there rehabbing pretty solidly while May was home with the kids, and it worked for you guys because you said you had clear goals, that you were both, you're kind of rowing in the same direction. You knew there was going to be pain on both your parts, like there's sacrifice, but it wasn't like May was like, why is that jerk up there rehabbing this house when I'm stuck here with the kids? It's like, he's doing something difficult, I'm doing something difficult right now, so that we get the outcome down the road that we're after. So can you share a little bit more about how you guys, because Taryn and I work in the business together as well, and we're about as far right and left brain as possible, and it's good because it complements the different tasks that are required in the vacation rental business. But how do you guys do it? I'm always curious how different couples work in the business together.
It's such a good question, right? I mean, May and I talk about it a lot, and I think there probably was some hesitation early on about like getting into business together kind of thing, like running the same. So for the last 3 or 4 years, I mean, she has a couple of her own businesses that she runs, and they're kind of her thing. She runs the day to day. She wears all the hats. I've always kind of been over here doing my thing. Well, all of a sudden that kind of came together, and we knew the reason she started her own businesses was purely to try and build something, and then to build something that cash flows. And we're like, okay, well, real estate, as we ran the numbers, we're like, the opportunity for cash flow out of an Airbnb is immense. Like from a return on time perspective, I mean, like how much cash flow can we generate for the amount of time we put into it? It was 10x over what we were looking at, and we felt like we were working 24/7 on kind of the smaller businesses. So we started to go, that immediately aligned us. And then so we're like, okay, the cash flow goals long term are the ultimate goal. We then started to try and identify what our roles would be, because it became very clear we're similar. Like I'm one side, she's the other side. Yeah. She's very design creative. I forget which is which at this point, so I'm not going to try and butcher it. But she's very design minded, creative. She loves that, where she doesn't like the numbers or the acquisition or the financing or anything like that. So I've always had those conversations, and she's just been, and she is crushing on the design side. So naturally, again, we aligned there because it was like two parts of the business, two parts of the one business. And then it was like, okay, well, we have to obviously factor in the kids here as well. And so she could do a lot of what she was doing remotely, meaning we get a lot of our stuff from Facebook Marketplace. And for those that are getting Airbnbs and have the opportunity to do so, Facebook Marketplace we've furnished 95% of our, 90% maybe out of our Airbnbs through Facebook Marketplace.
Wow.
But it gets down to having the one goal. And to your question of how do you do it, I don't know how we do it. It's a solid amount of communication. I mean, I was leaving, so I was still working full time. So I was leaving at 4:35 in the morning on, say, a Tuesday. I'd drive up north before phone call meetings at 8 a.m., which I was lucky enough to be able to work remote and take the calls that I needed to take throughout the day. Then I would work all night. And then typically I'd drive back. If I was coming back during the week, I'd drive back at 5 a.m. to get back into the office, my basement office, before my 8 a.m. the next day. So it all comes down to communication. I'm calling her on the ride up. Hey, got up here safe. This is what my plan is today. Is there anything you want me to think about? Like, have you seen anything on Facebook Marketplace you want me to pick up in the area? It's all communication and it's all goals. And I don't know how it would have worked had there been any like difference of mindset. So it is so critical. If you want to do this together, you have to be on the same page.
Wow, man, really, really great advice. That is awesome. Can you talk about what I want to hear a little bit more about the second deal too, sort of the differences. Maybe let's go there first, actually. If you can kind of talk about, so you kind of shared the numbers on the first deal, how it's working out so far, which is awesome. Then almost immediately, you guys got it listed in January, and then on Groundhog's Day, I saw your Facebook post saying you just got your second one under contract. And then you got it up on Airbnb like 2 weeks later. So how did that one go so much quicker? And what are some of the differences between the two?
So the funny thing here is some of the lessons I learned is you don't hear the teachings until you're ready to learn them. And I put this in this case because very, very early on, you were talking a lot around like, look at something turnkey. In this market, you can, based on the cash flow and based on the income someone can pull in, you can pay retail for something that's more turnkey. I'm going to, knowing the model that I'm used to, you go in and buy something low that you can put value into it, you refinance it out and go and do it again. Well, I'm not going into another 4.5 months of driving up with 5 million. So we found something that's like a 3-bed, 2-bath ranch on a half basement. It's actually on the street that not on the lakeside, but it's on the street that my in-laws cabin's on. And it was turnkey. We even thought we were going, all it needs is a kind of coat of paint and a little bit of update here and there. And we got in there and we're like, no, we're actually not going to do this. We're not going to do that. We're just going to furnish it. We hung some shelves, hung TVs. We replaced stuff that was broken, faucets here and there. But we got in there. I think we closed on it February 3rd. It's about 99% complete, ready for guests coming the 10th to 15th of April-ish.
Nice.
But the point being, it was turnkey.
Yeah.
So the numbers are a lot thinner on the deal. There was a lot of intangibles to it that was the reason why I wanted to add it to the portfolio. Same street as my in-laws. In fact, our turnover crew lives about half a mile away from the property. I just know the area so very well. It's hard to sell an investor on intangibles, all right? So the numbers still had to be there, but it's a lot longer term game with this one, and it's got its own pier on the lake too. So it's kind of a different gig.
And is it? Do you feel like the demand has, since you've listed it, has the demand been as strong, or is it similar?
Yeah, so it's actually not officially listed yet.
Oh, okay.
Just May's in the process. She was sitting here last night actually editing some of the pictures. But we expect it to be live probably over the next, we'd hope by this weekend it's officially live.
Cool. And
we're looking for available dates starting the middle of April. But there have been times where so first one we call Skunk Ridge. That's kind of the name of it. But we've had larger groups try to book it, and to a different skill set here is the vetting and everything that goes into guest management. We vet very thoroughly, and we're actually starting to redirect those that are looking at summer bookings over to this place. Hey, it's going to be coming live soon, so trying to build up a little bit of demand for that property as well, even though it's not listed yet. So
got it.
It's close.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. One of the cool things that I just wanted to point out too, that I stress to a lot of people that, we work with on getting their first vacation rental, is that if something changes, because, short-term rentals are becoming more and more popular, the market obviously has, appreciated for the last 11 years straight. So there's always some sort of market cycle. Who knows how long it will last or whatever. But if there's a change to where short-term rentals aren't just this insanely profitable thing that it is right now, or can be right now, then you could, you're buying these at a price point where your mortgage payment is so low that worst case scenario, you could rent them on a long-term basis, and you can cover your costs. It's not going to cash flow nearly as well as it does as a short-term rental, but you're not in a situation where you own, an $800,000 cabin somewhere that, you don't have a buyer for, and now there's no renters for, and you're upside down every month. So I just want to point that out because I think it's, when you hear about affordable markets, some people are kind of turned off, and it's like you can still buy an affordable vacation rental and cash flow really, really well and be in a much safer position. So I think that's awesome. So what would you say has been the biggest lesson that you've learned from doing this over the last 6 months or so?
Wow. There's so many, to be honest. Yeah, there is so many. What is the biggest lesson? The biggest lesson for me personally, and you asked my wife, it might be something different, but for me, it was around managing expectations of getting the work done, especially remotely. I was just exhausted. Working full time, working all night, working weekends, reading my kids a book to sleep over the phone. Like May would literally, she would take a screenshot of the book's pages and I would look at it and read it over the phone. Like just incorporating that into all of this. Actually, one of the biggest lessons that's kind of just come to light, I for years have been concerned around how I teach my kids this information because I was never really taught it in school. And for years I was going, I don't know how I can sit down and build out a curriculum and teach my kids how to do it. My oldest is 8. I've got 7-year-old twins. I've got a 5-year-old. And what I've found is in the car rides up to Wisconsin, May and I are talking about it. We're talking about it around the dinner table. We're talking about it before the kids get ready for school in the morning over a cup of coffee. Like we're always talking about it. That my oldest now, he's like, okay, hey, Dad, like, what are they paying in rent for this weekend? Like, do we have guests staying? What's going on? What work are we doing? So it's naturally coming because May and I are talking about it. So that's been a little bit of a weight off and allowed me just to freely just talk openly with him around what we are doing, why we're doing it, how do we get income above our expenses and what that means. Like you get to put that amount of money in your pocket and that sort of thing. And he's going, okay, I want to build out a lemonade stand this summer and I want to start my net cash flow increasing and all that sort of stuff. So that's been probably one of the biggest lessons and one of the most exciting ones, just seeing how and I keep saying he has the twins aren't quite there yet, but they're hearing the same information. So that's been exciting.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's normalizing it for them, to where when they get older, most people, it's almost like teaching a different language, I think, to kids, because when they get to adulthood, most people won't speak that language. Most people are growing up in the environment that's traditional, that, my parents work a 9 to 5 and that's what you need to do. And then when you get done with high school, you go to college and then you might be able to get a 9 to 5. But normalizing, like that's what we try to do with our kids. We take them along and, our kids are younger, but exact same, like, you talk about this stuff and they're like, well, why do my parents get to stay home, and other parents have to go to work we have assets. We have, we're visiting the houses, we're doing work, but these houses and our guests are paying for our expenses, and getting, that shift in mindset at an early age, I think sets kids up so much better later on for it not to be like such a foreign concept for them. So that's amazing. That is awesome. So what's up next for you guys? What how many, gonna buy about 8 more cabins up there, or?
It's funny because you ask me each week and it bounces back and forward. I won't say it changes, it bounces back and forward. We're actually in Florida right now, where we hired an Airbnb for, the kids are on spring break. And my wife said, you know what, we're getting out of here. We're going to go and book an Airbnb. So we're down here. I'm working. She's at the beach with the kids. I mean, it's a great balance, being able to have that balance and working remotely, even in the corporate world. What's next for us? I flip-flop, like I said, between let's cruise for 2022, just to get all the data behind us, see how these rentals perform before we really ramp up. And then on the other hand, like we're literally, after this interview, we're driving down to Southwest Florida for the evening to go and shop vacant lots that we could do some build to rent stuff through ClickInvest. So
it's like a disease.
It really is. So I don't know is the answer for that. We do know we want to get anywhere between 12 to 16 rentals based on the analysis from these ones. We've got like a monthly cash flow goal.
What do you have an idea of what you think your annual monthly, if you, obviously it's going to be a lot higher in the summer, lower in the winter, but if you average it out for the year, what, just from these two very affordable cabins, what do you think your net cash flow will be?
So I can speak confidently to the first one. I don't have the numbers as a refresher in front of me for the second one right now, but the first one's projected to be net $1,500 a month. If it hits where I needed to hit. It started lower. In fact, our cash flow was negative for the first couple of months because we had a couple of teething issues pop up that we had to take care of. But if things work to the projections, it should be about $1,500 net. So I guess do the math. We want to try and get 12 to 16 and get that as a monthly. My target goal is in the next 4 years. I'm going to look at buying whatever pops up that makes sense in our market as fast as possible over the next 18 months. The challenge right now, like everyone is seeing, is inventory. There is, in our market right now, there is nothing solid on the market that'll fit the numbers. There's plenty on the market, but they're either in areas that are at risk of short-term regulations being put in place, or the sellers just got such high expectations that the numbers won't work. In fact, the second one we bought was listed 50 grand higher than what we got it at, because we sat and watched it for 6 months. I'm going, I know where those numbers are. And so come end of like the week before Christmas, we go, here's our offer, because we know that that's where market value is. You either want to get away to Arizona for the winter and you want to get rid of this place, or you don't and you'll sit on it for another 6 months. So yeah, that's, like I said, it's a disease. We're always chomping at the bit to pick the next one up, but there's an element of us wanting to, maybe it's more so me, wanting to spend time with kids, hence Florida, wanting to be a bit more present, wanting to get data under our belts. So
yeah. Yeah, no, it's great. It's a great point. I think we all have that competition in our head. I heard Brendan Bouchard talk about this before. He's a big self development guy, and he said, you know, especially in like the self development world, he said there's people who like get up and they put out content and they just watch their clicks accumulate, and you know, they go to bed if it's less than the day before, but if it's higher than the day before when they go to bed at night, or I'm sorry, when they go to bed at night, if it's less than the day before, they're depressed. But if they go to bed at night and it's higher than the day before, then they're happy temporarily. And then they do the same thing the next day. And it's, you know, they get on this cycle of just looking at the statistics and not enjoying the day. And so he talks about like you just said, being present in the day and being super grateful for what we've got. You know, you've got 2 properties, which I know you guys are, like you're and paying attention to, wow, we have $3,000 of cash flow now that should be coming in soon on these 2 properties that didn't exist before. And it's a result of hard work, but remembering that instead of, you know, what we can all get caught up in with looking at that next deal and always, well, it'd be better to have $6,000 of cash flow. And then once you get there, it's like, well, I need 12 now. And but that gratitude thing is so important. I've noticed that myself, that, every day, just waking up and trying to remind myself, living the life that very few people get to live. And, you can always improve, but it's good to have those goals to work toward, but also keep in perspective all that we have. So
it's such a great point too. And to add to that, if I can, really a shift in focus that I've had probably in the last, definitely this year, probably towards the back end of Q4 last year. Like, there are so many external factors impacting our mood, impacting our, like, everything, that I was like riding this wave. I'm going, I've got to strip something back here. And so I started looking at it and like, okay, what can I control for my family, to put my family in the best possible place that I can? And it's narrowed the focus so much. And it's allowed me, I guess, the freedom on the mental side to be more grateful, to be like, okay, then we're in a good spot. I can lower my expectations a little bit because I know what I can control, and I'm just going to go out and crush that part and not worry about the noise. And so often everybody can get tied up in all that stuff. Yeah. And so that's just something that's really helped me. And I can't put enough weight on the fact of getting the second one felt like I was in more control, because, like, to some degree you're like, okay, I got the first one, was that a fluke? Yeah. And I'm like, no, I repeat the actions because I'm consciously making these choices and resulted in the next one. So now it gives you that confidence to get back and be like, no, you can do this. So being grateful, being in control, being present with family, because you can tie the two together. For years and years, I didn't think that was the case. In fact, Boyan, I credit Boyan with giving me a hard time at some point. Boyan, I think, has been on the podcast as well. I was like, look, I'm going to bust my butt for 10 years. I said this, I'm going to bust my butt for 10 years, and then I'm going to have financial freedom, and I'm going to spend more time with the family. He's like, dude, the kids are going to be 13. They're not going to want to spend time with you. You've got to do it along the way. And so that really came into it as well. It's like, how do you factor that in? How do you be more present while trying to achieve your goals? So minor shifts of mindset, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, it's such a great reminder. Absolutely. Well, so Taryn and I are planning to come up and stay in your cabin this fall. Perfect. It is awesome. If you want to check, if listeners want to check it out. So I noticed there's 13 5-star reviews, so solid ratings on it. But what's the link if people want to check out the cabin?
Yeah, I know I believe it'll be in the show notes, but I think we've got our own. It's airbnb.com/h/wilderness escapes. So awesome. That'll get you directly to that property. I think we'll get another link for the second one. Mm-hmm. But you should at that point be able to see us as hosts and then see the other property. I'll have to see how that works on Airbnb. But yeah, airbnb.com/h/wilderness escapes. So. Nice.
Yeah. That's it's a awesome property. So if you're going to be in the Midwest and you want a cool getaway, it definitely we're planning to utilize it this fall after we have our third child, and have a little bit of time to get away and enjoy. So awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate the time again today. You've given a lot to this community, and I just really enjoy working with you and having your friendship. So if people want to just get in touch with you directly, what's the best way?
To be honest, I don't know. I've actually had people reach out on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to chat. So
yeah, cool.
I don't even think we have a Wilderness Escapes email address. Let me figure that out after this.
Yeah. But social media, I know you're active on social media.
Facebook, look me up that way. I'm in the same sort of groups. I'm in the Living Off Rentals Facebook group as well. So you want to comment there, fire it over there.
Cool. Yeah. And there'll be links in the show notes for the podcast too. So awesome. Well, thanks again. And it's great talking to you.
You too. Thanks, Kirby, for everything, mate. Appreciate it.